A spoonful of sugar helps the Medicare for the Lazy Man podcast go down. The Medicare podcast Meatloaf sang about in 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad, killing people softly with his song, Medicare expert Doug Jones.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Medicare for the Lazy Man podcast. You may have heard from my Canadian nephew, Drew McMillan, that I am Doug Jones. I'm your Medicare expert, and I'll be here all day. So tip your Medicare expert, if you would, please. I like to help people feel more confident about Medicare. A lot of people are very concerned, very trepidatious about Medicare, and frankly, there's no need for that. It's possible to enroll in Medicare with the proper choices being made and have the best possible Medicare coverage at the most reasonable cost if you follow a few simple directions. And I've got those directions itemized in my book, Medicare for the Lazy Man. The 2025 is the most current edition. If you were to go to the bookstore, let's say barnesandnoble.com or even amazon.com, you would find Medicare for the Lazy Man 2025, just ripe for the plucking. And once you got that book in your hands, whether you do it in the traditional way with a paperback book or whether you purchase the Kindle version from Amazon, which can be delivered to you instantly electronically to your reading device, or perhaps you'd like to listen to the book with the Audible version, and you may have somebody, a loved one or a friend and relative, somebody you respect who has a holiday coming up, maybe a birthday or something like that. So you might want to spring $25 for the hardcover version. But in any event, you get that book, you sit down for a short read, and you're going to have a very clear understanding of how to enroll in Medicare with the best possible coverage available at the most reasonable cost available. These are things that nobody else in my profession will share with you because they don't make very much money if they follow my directions and sell the products I recommend that you buy. They're inexpensive, and that means that there isn't much left for a premium or for a commission for the agent. However, lifetime of protection, it's hard to put a price on that. So I suggest that you get a hold of my book, Medicare for the Lazy Man, and take a look-see. I think you'll like what you find. Also, newly published, and by the time this airs, it'll be for sale big time on Amazon, is Medicare Drug Plans. That's my newest book, and it's a how to do it yourself drug plan selection for every boy and girl that's on Medicare, as well as those approaching Medicare for the first time. This book will allow you to select your own best drug plan from all of the plans available in your area. Typically, there are about 15 in most areas, and you will be able to do this without any pesky, annoying insurance agents bothering you. And it even shows you how to enroll yourself in the plans. You don't need to have an insurance license in order to enroll yourself in a Medicare drug plan once you've chosen the plan that's best for you. So all you have to do is sit down with this book and follow the pictures, follow the bouncing ball, as it were, and you will be led directly from the very first computer screen in the drug plan selection process right through to the enrollment. And I don't know how long it'll take you, but it won't take you very long. And once you've completed your enrollment, you're good for the rest of this year. Now, you're going to want to come back and do it again every fall. They have a thing called AEP, Annual Election Period, which prepares you to look at the plans that are going to be available for the following year. And you want to make sure that your current plan is going to be the best one available for the following year. If not, and you do this drug selection, this plan selection process before December 7th, you'll be able to enroll in a new plan that will be effective January 1st for the following year. And you'll be sailing into the new year with the recommended Medicare parts, the recommended Medicare supplement, and the recommended drug plan, you'll be all set for that whole next year of 2026. And you'll be able to thumb your nose at your friends and neighbors, and you'll be able to lord it over them, uh, laughing at their imbecilic attempts to uh, foul, flumble around in the Medicare morass. You will have conquered all of that uncertainty. So, Medicare for the Lazy Man 2025 and Medicare Plans, a simple DIY guide. Those are the two books that you might want to get. And I would go to Amazon.com and grab both of them before they run out. There's quite a demand for them. So, speaking of demand, Randy is demanding that we get these last two recording episodes out of the way so that he can start packing for his European vacation.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you doing, Doug?
I'm doing great today, as usual. It's rare when I'm not. I would prefer to be in Arizona. I'm in Illinois, where the sun rarely shines, and the the governor is. I'm trying to think of something to tie the governor in with the lack of sunshine, but we're hoping that he finds himself another career at some point in the near future. I did want to tell you.
I've got something for you.
What's that?
Where the sun never shines, nor does the governor.
Well, there you go. I could use that. Let me try that later on and see how it flows. I did want to tell you, though, we had some correspondence from a fan, and I use the term fan lovingly. In reality, this is my stalker, Stalker Susie, you named
Is
her.
this Stalker Susie? Well,
Yes,
hi,
yes.
Susie. How are you?
Now, she wrote a short little note. She said, I was afraid that you did not receive the message because I hadn't heard anything on the podcast. And I had to explain to her that we, in anticipation of your vacation, we have banked about maybe 50 episodes, and it's going to take a long time. It's like there's a time warp. So what happens right now doesn't really, it isn't noticed until several weeks in the future. So I said, delayed reaction. I said, we have banked many episodes in anticipation of Randy's European vacation, kind of like the movie. Anything that happens now will not be mentioned for about 3 weeks. I said, rest assured that your kind words, she did say some very nice things about the podcast and so forth and so on. And I said, the only problem I encounter because of your kind words is uncontrolled blushing. And she wrote back and said, oh, good. I hope Randy has a great vacation and lots of Guinnesses. She doesn't use the same term, Guinea that you have.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's Guinea is the appropriate term.
Okay,
I'm teasing. That's just something I made up.
I understand. Well, anyway, then she said something I don't quite understand. She said he gets an A plus for his alliteration. I don't know where the alliteration showed up that she was complimenting you about, but in any event, I just wanted to let you know that Stalker Susie is still on the job. And when she hears this in about 3 weeks, you'll be back in town, I guess.
Well, yeah, by the time Stalker Susie hears it, yes, I will be back in town. Um, Unless I decide just to live in Ireland for another couple of weeks. I don't know.
Well, thank God for electrons. We'd still be able to perform our magical functions with the podcast, just you'd have a different background.
Yeah, much different background. I would probably change it out to something else more interesting than my office blurred out. But hey,
Yeah.
whatever you got to
Yep.
do.
Well, the problem is now who do you? I know who you leave the children with, the four-legged animals. I hate to call them animals. That sounds pejorative, but if you that would be your primary reason for coming back, I assume, to make sure they remembered you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, obviously we've got our daughter here and
Yeah.
our son-in-law. They could, if we were going to extend, but more than likely, what would happen since we keep them at a kennel,
Oh,
or
do
we
you?
or we call it the spa,
Yes, of course.
and the dogs don't quite agree with that concept that it's a spa. They describe it as some sort of a jail. I'm not sure
Oh,
why,
huh.
because it's this they got friends there, they play, they get in, anything they want. But anyway, to them it's a jail. But that's
No.
probably what we do is just call them up and say, hey, we need to extend our extend
Yeah.
our jail term for our kids a little bit. But
Ah,
I probably want to get back to see them just as much as anybody else.
I can understand. Well, that reminds me back in the 70s, after we lived in Tucson, we moved back to Illinois because of family obligations. And Mary started a kennel or a jail, a spa, whatever.
I,
And she ran one for a long time, had a lot of customers, and everybody enjoyed uh, everybody thought their pets were well treated. But there was this beautiful Irish setter that these people brought frequently, and they brought the Irish setter more and more frequently. They had the parents and the adult children, and one of the family members would show up with the dog, and then they would all go off skiing in the Alps or someplace. This was the J. Walter Thompson advertising executive who came up with the idea of the Marlboro Man,
oh,
and
okay.
he lived in Geneva, Illinois, just a short distance down the river from us, and he would leave his dog, and one of his kids would come to pick up the dog, and they'd be gone a week to a month or more. And Mary fell in love with that dog, and I said, well, they owe you a ton of money. Maybe at some point they're going to say, well, we're traveling so much, we'll just give you the dog and call it even. Well, that's exactly what happened. They called up and they said, well, it's not really fair to the dog to leave the dog in the kennel or the spa so frequently. So would you like the dog? And Mary said, I would love that dog. It's the sweetest dog in the world. And they said, okay, well, we're going to come over with a big giant pile of money that we owe you, and you can have the dog. We'll bring her the dog's bowl and leash and everything else. So she acquired an Irish setter and still got paid handsomely for keeping it.
You know, you know how my mind works in strange ways.
I've heard
Well,
that, but I've never seen your mind actually work for any length of time. So
when you said, yeah, they were going to stop and drop the dog off, and yeah, somehow in my mind, and then they were going to come and drop the dog, come and drop the dog off, come get your
yes,
dog.
yeah,
For some reason, you know where my mind went?
uh-uh.
Did they ever drop a kid off and take the dog with them?
No, they never did. The kids were just a few years younger than me, so they were young adults. And interestingly enough, they'd come in and have a beer, and everyone had a different story about how they acquired the dog.
Yeah.
And everyone was kind of funny. One of them I remember was that they found the dog half frozen in a snowbank in Colorado, and they brought it inside stiff as a board and put it down in front of the fireplace, and then a spark jumped out of the fireplace and set the dog's coat on fire. And I don't know, it just went on and on and on. I think these kids were taught storytelling, creative storytelling by their father.
It sounds very much like that. Yeah.
Yeah, very entertaining group of people. Unfortunately, the dog didn't last very long because what it liked to do was roam around the countryside. We had 86 acres, and somebody had a subdivision. The homes had probably a couple of acres each, and so she went over and made friends with all of the residents over there, and we'd have to go pick her up in the car. So finally, Mary got this 50-foot chain, snapped it onto the dog's collar, and the dog immediately had an epileptic seizure because I think it knew it was never going to be allowed to roam again. And
My days of freedom are over.
yeah, and so
It's probably just like Medicare Advantage.
well, I'd like to think those days are over. Let's see. I've got a little article here about Medicare Advantage being ripe for an overhaul. Maybe it's time to tear into that and see what it has to say.
Overhaul, I would prefer to call it a ripe for a burning it down.
Well, maybe that's what they have in mind. I couldn't tell you for sure. There's a lot of yellow highlighting here that may lead to that conclusion. So let me tear into this and see if it's the kind of information we would celebrate. And I'm going to start doing that. I think Randy has muted himself off because his eyelids look like they're getting kind of heavy. So hopefully we'll be back speaking to him shortly. But once again, Medicare Advantage is ripe for an overhaul. This is a very recent article just written a couple of weeks ago. As the Senate eyes alternative or additional cost-saving provisions to those included in the bill that passed the House, the reconciliation bill, some Republicans are considering reforms to Medicare. That is a promising development because overhauling Medicare Advantage could lower federal costs in ways that even many Democrats have advocated, although it is certain the overhaul bill will receive no Democratic support due to myriad other provisions. Now, this article says Medicare Advantage is growing because the plans usually offer more generous coverage than the traditional program without charging substantially higher premiums. I disagree with that. I believe the plan is growing because many retirees at large companies are being forced into Medicare Advantage. Also, there is a huge number of salespeople, I would call them arm twisters, scam artists, and leeches who specialize in selling these Medicare Advantage plans. There is not the same army of people trying to contact people selling only Medicare supplements. That just doesn't happen. And that's why Medicare Advantage is growing, because the commissions are so generous for the agents. They get paid so much for each Medicare Advantage enrollee that that's what they concentrate their sales activities on. So anyway, in fact, many Medicare Advantage enrollees get free prescription drug coverage and much lower cost sharing for hospital and physician services. They also sometimes get limited dental and vision, limited is the key word there, limited dental and vision care protection. Medicare Advantage enrollees usually do not pay for Medicare supplement insurance, which is, I don't know, usually they never pay for it. If they have Medicare Advantage, they are not allowed to have a Medicare supplement. So they do not pay for Medicare supplement insurance, which can be expensive unless you purchase the plan that I recommend. So moving ahead with this article, critics argue that Medicare Advantage plans can offer added benefits only because they are overpaid. The plans are overpaid, a contention credible research confirms, including as conducted by the Medicare Payment Advisory Commission, MedPAC. At the same time, other data shows Medicare Advantage plans are often more efficient at delivering services than the traditional program because the plans scrutinize claims more carefully. And I would add that in that scrutinizing process, they also deny claims in much greater numbers than regular Medicare does. If you're a Medicare Advantage participant, you stand a much greater chance of having a claim denied, and that's going to be problematic. Medicare Advantage reform should incentivize efficiency and high-quality care without needlessly overpaying the plans. The Senate should pull together a reform plan that gradually restructures the Medicare Advantage market so that it operates more efficiently and with lower costs for taxpayers. Here are 4 general principles that should guide what is developed. One is competitive bidding. Another is standardized benefits. That's what Medicare supplement plans have, standardized benefits. One plan, like a Plan G, for instance, is the same no matter which company offers it. And that actually makes it much less confusing for the shopper who is trying to compare the plans. The third item is risk adjustment. There are many criticisms of the current system of providing payment adjustments to Medicare Advantage plans based on the varied health risks of their enrollees. The current system has several flaws that might be addressed, but the basic problem is too much reliance on the data that the plans submit to the government, and that can lead directly to higher revenue, and of course they're incentivized to kind of fudge the truth because they want to get that higher revenue. And then finally, ACOs as Medicare Advantage plans, they are accountable care organizations, are doctors and hospitals that have formed organizations to deliver health care. And there's a school of thought that says that those ACOs could be the way to go instead of the insurance companies being in charge of Medicare Advantage in the future. So could have been more exciting, but at least somebody's thinking about what to do about these damn Medicare Advantage plans that are ripping people off in many cases, too many cases. Your Medicare Benefits 2025. We're digging our way through this giant book, which is an alphabetical list of everything that Medicare can possibly pay for that you might come up with. And in this case, we are in the M's. We're at mental health and substance use disorder services. Medicare covers certain screenings and services and programs that aid in the treatment and recovery of mental health and behavioral health and substance use disorders, including alcohol misuse screenings. I guess that maybe means spilling it. I try to be careful and not misuse my alcohol. I try not to spill it, but other people don't have the same control over their bodily behavior. Behavioral health integration services, counseling to prevent tobacco use and tobacco-caused diseases, depression screenings, mental health care inpatient, mental health care outpatient, mental health care intensive outpatient program services, mental health care partial hospitalization. I don't know what that means. Do they lock you up in the loony bin and then turn you loose every 12 hours or something? Opioid use disorder treatment services and telehealth. So those are the things that fall under mental health and substance use disorder services. The next thing we're going to study in the next episode is mental health care inpatient. And so that's going to be a whole different subject, even though it still starts with M. And in fact, the first word mental and the second word health are identical. So that'll be pretty exciting, waiting to see what's going on with that. Mary told me that this was a good article, and I hope it is. I hope everybody finds it to be entertaining. It's the headline is "Worried About Medical Emergencies on Vacation." This would be apropos for Randy because he's heading out for his European tour, his grand tour of Europe. How to stay covered if you're on Medicare. 4 health coverage options for Medicare participants who are hitting the road. Having U.S. health insurance, meaning Medicare insurance, does not necessarily mean you're in the clear when you're traveling. Medicare benefits will not pay medical costs while you're on vacation if you're out of the country. It's vitally important to figure out your health coverage before you leave home. Now, as a sidebar, I'm going to say that the Medicare supplement plans that I sell all have an emergency treatment benefit of a maximum of $50,000. There's a $250 deductible, and then it will pay 80% of the necessary emergency treatment costs to the lifetime maximum of $50,000. So you still got your 20% to pay. And I don't know that a lot of people would consider that to be enough coverage when they're traveling, but, I don't see people stampeding to buy this traveler's health insurance either. So let's read on, shall we? Some 68% of people 60 and older will be vacationing in 2025, according to ARP. 4 strategies to spend less while enjoying life more. For domestic trips, Medicare's coverage rules depend on whether you have traditional Medicare, Medicare supplement, or a Medicare Advantage plan. Traditional Medicare covers you wherever you are in the United States and possessions, as long as the doctor or hospital accepts Medicare. And that's going to be 95% of them. So your odds of finding a doctor or a hospital that does not accept Medicare are pretty rare. Whether your Medicare supplement or Medicare Advantage plan will provide benefits while traveling depends on the policy. Medicare supplement is good everywhere in the U.S. plus possessions. Medicare Advantage may not be. Now, if you leave the country, there's a good chance you'll need a backup plan. Medicare usually does not cover health care received or prescription drugs purchased while traveling outside of the 50 U.S. states, Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Northern Mariana Islands, and American Samoa. Elsewhere, it only pays for hospital, doctor, and ambulance services in the following circumstances. 1, you're traveling through Canada on a trip between Alaska and another U.S. state when a medical emergency arises and a Canadian hospital is closer than the nearest U.S. hospital. Medicare will cover your charges then. Or 2, a foreign hospital is closer to your home than the nearest U.S. hospital that could treat your condition. And 3, you're on a cruise ship in U.S. territorial waters, and that ship is no more than 6 hours from a U.S. port. Your Medicare coverage is good in that regard, or in that situation. A recent eHealth survey found that 64% of Medicare beneficiaries mistakenly believe that their insurance covered international travel. Certain Medicare Advantage plans and Medicare supplement policies pay for some medical expenses when traveling, like I just described for the Medicare supplement plans that I sell. You've got an emergency treatment benefit of no more than $50,000. Premium credit cards may include global medical emergency coverage also. You may also be able to receive health benefits from a travel insurance policy. Keep in mind, though, that international health coverage requires paying medical expenses out of pocket and then submitting receipts to the insurer for reimbursement afterwards. That's because the overseas health providers don't have the capability to bill your plan here in the States. Here's a guide to 4 health coverage options for Medicare participants who are planning to travel. One is Medicare Advantage plans. They typically cover medical expenses incurred near where you live, as well as emergency or urgent care nationwide. But some also provide benefits when traveling domestically or pay 80% of the cost of emergency or urgent medical care internationally. Travel coverage depends on the plan, of course, so you got to read the fine print. And some Medicare Advantage plans have passport programs that let members to get medical coverage when traveling to certain parts of the United States. All right. Medicare supplement policies, they provide the same coverage for hospital costs anywhere in the U.S. as traditional Medicare, and most mirror traditional Medicare for doctor's visits domestically. But international coverage is a different story. And this is what I described before. Certain types of Medicare supplement policies cover medical costs abroad, and then typically only up to 80% of emergency expenses with a $50,000 lifetime benefit. Premium credit cards. There are a few credit cards that include emergency health coverage and emergency assistance when traveling. They're often premium cards with annual fees between $400 and $600. Wow. Cards offering such benefits are typically quite restrictive about how and where and when and how much they'll pay. For example, the Chase Sapphire Reserve card, which has a $550 annual fee and 20 to 29% current interest rate, that card covers up to $2,500 in medical expenses and up to $100,000 in emergency evacuation, medical, and transportation costs for someone on a trip 100 or more miles from home. But the trip cannot be for fewer than 5 days or for more than 60 days. Often these types of cards won't cover health expenses resulting from extreme sports like scuba diving or parachuting. They may also exclude pre-existing conditions. Travel insurance policies. I have these available for my clients. You can also buy health insurance coverage as part of a travel insurance policy sold by tour operators, cruise lines, airlines, and insurers. American Express sells medical protection through its Amex Assurance division, and you don't need an American Express card to buy it. Insurance experts usually urge travelers to buy policies from independent companies such as Square Mouth, never heard of that, Insure My Trip, and Travel Guard. My two travel insurance companies are much better known. One of them is a Blue Cross Blue Shield company. So anyway, you'll usually pay less and get broader, better coverage when you buy a freestanding travel insurance policy. Many cruises have a package that includes travel insurance. It's not always the most cost-effective way to go, but just try to get out of it. That means it's included automatically and you're not allowed to get out of it. There are 2 types of travel insurance policies. Comprehensive policies usually include trip cancellation, trip interruption, and baggage insurance, as well as medical and emergency evacuation coverage. Less expensive travel and Medicare medical plans often pay just for medical care and emergency evacuations. If you're going on a cruise, you'll want the comprehensive package since so many things could go wrong and require reimbursement. But if you're just going to Europe to spend time with old friends or, young friends maybe, you may not need the trip cancellation coverage. The amount of health coverage varies by policy, but maximums often range between $50,000 and $2 million. Square Mouth recommends buying a minimum of $50,000 in emergency medical coverage and at least $100,000 in evacuation coverage, more if you're in a remote location. So, as I said, I've got a couple of companies that offer standalone travel health insurance. And those are, they're a little pricey, but if they put your mind at ease, then you will probably thank me, even though they are a little pricey. And finally, I want to mention a message I got from my neighbor in Arizona. This neighbor is a good friend of mine. He and his wife and we get together all the time. And he was taking Jardiance, and he had a Humana drug plan, and CenterWell Pharmacy is the mail order that Humana uses. So his Jardiance was costing him $800 per prescription. And of course, he's a successful guy, but nobody likes to pay more than you really have to pay for something. And so I gave him a list of discount. It's a list of URLs of websites that scan the Canadian marketplace to find the best available plans from reputable pharmacies that ship to the United States. So the first thing he did, instead of following my list, was he went off for a vacation on St. Martin, and he bought his prescription there, renewed it, had it refilled, and that was, instead of $800, that was $230. And so he was pretty excited about that. Now, just recently, he picked out one of the Canadian pharmacies on the list of providers that I gave him, ordered from that, and had his prescription filled for $156. So he was saving $600 and almost $50 by using a discount pharmacy source that I provided for him. So I feel like a hero, and I'm going to take all the plaudits and continue to drink free beer when I go over to his house to visit. And with that, I shall turn everything back to Randy, because he's been sitting here patiently trying to stay awake during all of this falderall.
Yes, guess what?
We're out of quarters, I bet.
We are out of quarters. So I'm going to have to close up shop. There's a few things I need to do before we turn the lights off and pull the shades down on the front door. So anyway, grab your pencil, people. dbj@mlmmailbag.com is where you can reach out to Doug with any questions or concerns or comments or anything else you can think of. Medicareforthelazyman.com. That's the website you need to check out. Lots of cool stuff there. And you will find out that Doug is licensed nationwide to help you with your Medicare supplement planning. Every state of the union, Doug is there. Not all at the same time, but he could be.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, exactly. And then, if while you're running through all the states in the union, whether you're on the internet or whether you're there physically, we would appreciate it if you would drop some reviews on the content that we produce. Because we're still, what is it? We're not in July yet. We're in June, but
Yeah.
we need to start keeping the numbers up, because we do not want to lose to the travelogue people. We just don't. It would be a shame if we did. But last and certainly not least, thank you for joining us. You could have been anywhere else doing anything else, and you weren't. You were with us, which is exactly where we like to have you. But doggone it, nobody ever tracks the time. So I'm going to keep you honest. You have just spent about 32 and a half minutes with Doug Jones, the anti-insurance insurance guy, originally from Oklahoma. Not now. He's living in the low ground. I think it's about 762 feet as opposed to thousands where he's at usually in Arizona. He's in the low ground out in Pugsleyville. And
Yes, I am.
bottom line is, I don't know whether he likes Pugsleyville or not, but I know he loves Arizona.
As a small child, I pledged that I was going to live in Arizona full time, and for some reason, I failed miserably at achieving that goal. But it's coming up. I can hear it, I can see it, I can feel it coming down the pike. I should explain this travelogue thing once more. When I first wrote Medicare for the Lazy Man, it might have been 2018 or 2019, and Randy and I made our acquaintance and decided we could work together. One day I looked at Amazon's rankings, and I was number one. Medicare for the Lazy Man was number one in travel and leisure. And I said to myself, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And over the course of a few months, I finally realized that it was people of Medicare age who were looking for something to do while they were driving across the country in their RVs. And I believe it was like the wife would buy the book and read it out loud to the husband. That's what I picture happening anyway. And that's why the travel category of Amazon is, has become like a gold mine for Medicare for the lazy man.
Yes, now it makes perfect sense. I can actually visualize that happening. Cruising down I-80 at about 453 miles an hour
Sure.
in this self-contained motorhome that started out to be a Greyhound bus. Once you get them rolling, you don't want to slow down. So the
No,
wife is sitting
sometimes you
there.
can't slow down.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So the wife is sitting there reading the book to you, trying to
Yep.
keep you awake where you've got this guided missile going
Yeah.
about 83 miles an hour, and it's a what, 15 tons, I suppose?
Yeah. Nobody tells her that Medicare ain't going to keep him awake for very long. So, but apparently they're out there buying the books. So they have something worthwhile to study while they're traveling.
Absolutely. I totally get it, and I can visualize it. So there you go. Do you want to say goodbye to anybody,
I
or do
want
you
to,
want to sing
I,
a song, or what do you want to do?
last time was a little abrupt. I want to say thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, and please come back for our next recording episode. We'll be holding the door open and having the lights waiting for you. So we'll see you soon. Bye bye.